So we think, oh, the poor Bushmen, you know, they're living hand to mouth, they're living day to day, and so forth. They're freer than you and I because they aren't subject to a monopoly, an absolute monopoly. They don't depend on one entity who they don't know, who you and I don't know, to supply them with what it takes for them to survive. They take responsibility and ownership of their water resources. Whenever rights are born, human rights or property rights are born when there's scarcity, and then scarcity leads to conflict. There's no police force out there saying you have to behave or you get water and you don't. That's what brings them together in the middle of the Kalahari, is saying, okay, well, what have you brought to the table? No table, but what have you brought to the fire? And the trouble is that in places like India, America, and Botswana, one government says, you know what, all that water belongs to us. So we're going to invest that water for diamonds, for tourism, and for cattle. And if there's a little bit left over, we'll give it to people, but we'll only give it to people who live here and here and here, and we'll only give them this much out of the bounty of our heart, out of our graciousness. And that's not a human right. That's a privilege. People say, like, what's this book about? In one sentence, I try to say it's about who owns the water and what that water's worth. And those are two inextricably related things, because if no one owns the water, water has no worth. But if each of us own the water, we can negotiate water's worth, and we have a desire to make that water more valuable because it's precious to us, and then we take more responsibility for it. But I think as long as no one owns the water, we're going to be in trouble. As long as only the government says, okay, we're looking after the greater common good, every raindrop that lands in this country belongs to us to divvy up as we see fit, then we're all going to be in more and more trouble, because we're going to be fighting each other through the government or against the government or outside of the government to try to get to what's rightfully ours.